Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Danielle, just in case you didn't know, now you do. And I assure you there are two space buns, not just one. They're just crooked, and to be honest, I like this one better, and then I redid this one and then it ended up like that, and I thought, you know what, we're just gonna quit while we're behind, at least for this particular thing. Okay, so I got a question a while ago that was somewhere along the lines of, what is it like to live with your mom slash family slash parents when you are in your 30s? And I realize it's not a conventional way to live, and I am very interested in alternative ways of living, and this I think is one that isn't considered not considered a good thing, I guess, but I have lots of good things to say about it. I've really enjoyed my experience, so I wanted to talk about it with you guys as well. Some people try and discredit me and say that my life isn't valid because, and my job isn't valid because I still live with my mom, and I don't think that's true. I think that being able to live in a really supportive environment in any way, shape, or form, if that's with your parents, if that's with your best friend, and you know, really should be at the age, you're at the age to like move out on your own and live on your own, but you prefer living with roommates or you prefer living with your parents, and if they're happy to have you, then I see nothing wrong with it at all. So anyway, let's get on with it. Oh, one other thing to add. This video is going to have very little editing, okay? So don't complain about it, because this is sort of like a one take. I'm getting through it. I've written out my notes, so if you see me looking down, I'm looking at the screen of my phone, because I wrote like basically an essay as to why I live with my mom, okay? So first off, let's talk about how I haven't always lived here. I left. I graduated high school in 2005, and I left and I moved to Toronto, and I lived there for 5 or 6 years. I don't know, it's all, by now it's all messed up in my brain. And I lived on my own. I lived in the dorms for 2 years, which was awful, and I hated having roommates that I didn't get to pick. Then I lived in an apartment in the basement of an old lady's house. That old lady still had her grown male children living with her. And the reason why I got the basement as an apartment is because one of her children had moved out to get married, and that's the only way they were leaving her house. So that was, I hated living with her because she would come into my space all the time and didn't really respect that it was my own apartment, but that's a whole other story for a whole other day. So I went away to school at 18, and I lived on my own for about 6 years. And then when I moved back, I came back, it was to live here with my mom. I moved back because I wasn't finding full-time work in fashion in Toronto. It was after the recession, you know, 2010, 11 maybe, and let's see, my grandmother or my grandfather had just moved into a retirement home, and so that was a lot. My mom was going to see him all the time. My grandmother was already there in the nursing home side of that facility, so she passed away not long after, like later that year. So it was a lot happening that year, and when I moved back, I was really sad. I wouldn't go as far as saying like depressed, but I was done school, and I had built a community of people there where I was doing events. I put on fashion shows regularly. I was still getting to make clothes. Although the thing is I couldn't afford to live there. My mom was paying most of my rent to help me, like, allow me to live that dream, and I didn't want her to do that forever. She couldn't afford to in the first place. And so I needed to come home. And sorry, my voice is like, I'm going to get emotional about this, and it's like first thing in the morning, and I'm like just sort of like getting my voice behind me, I guess. Anyway, so I moved home, and I was super like sad all the time. I didn't have any friends here. The people I went to high school with, I didn't like them, and even the ones I called my friends, I didn't like. They were just bad people. Not even like bad people, but like they weren't people I wanted to hang out with. They were very judgmental, and you know, that was all behind me, and I didn't really want to hang out with them. And so I didn't keep in touch in school, and so they weren't there when I came home. And when I came home, I still wanted to do fashion. I regularly went back to Toronto for the day. I did go back once to put on a charity fashion show, and like I hauled my entire collection from home here to back to Toronto. My mom came with me, you know. She drove, and I, you know, spent the whole day in Toronto. We drove home that night after it was like, I don't know, 11 p.m. when the fashion show was over. Like, she was so there for me all the time. Still is. I'm getting off track, so I'm getting my notes back out. So, let's see. Okay, so in the time that I had been living away, things were happening. I was not, you know, I was off in Toronto, and she was back here. And when I moved out at 18 to go to school, my mom still lived in a tiny village about 20 minutes from where we live now, and she was still married to my dad. Our house was not up for sale. They were not getting separated, but I came home for a holiday once, and like a Christmas holiday or something, and or maybe it was summer, because I definitely came home during the summer the first time. So I came home, and my dad, who was verbally abusive, and I say was because I don't speak to him anymore, so he's not in my life, he was verbally abusive to us all our lives, and there was just something that like triggered it. That was like the last straw, and she was like, no, I'm done. We'll put the house up for sale. Like, I don't want to be with you anymore. Like, and you know, that was, but it kind of happened like while I was away at school, and so like it took the house a long time to sell, but when she did, she moved here to where we are now, and that was a big change, because we went from living in the country to having a house where our neighbors quite literally can see into our house. You know, it's a lot. There's a lot more noise, a lot more people. So that was something that happened. They got divorced. What else happened? Let me bring up my notes. Just a lot happened, and it's very different than if we were still, like if my dad was still here. He's never lived in this house, and it's great, to be honest. I wouldn't live with her if she was still with my dad. I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I may not even be alive if she still lived with him, because there could have been other things that caused me to do other stuff, you know? So when I first moved back, I quit my retail job. I worked at Reitman's, the actual store called Reitman's, not just the Reitman's umbrella brand. I've also worked at Pennington's before. So I worked at Reitman's. I had to quit my retail job because like I worked there, I don't know, 15 hours a week maximum. And so I didn't have a job when I first moved back. That was hard because I wasn't making any money, and so my mom was paying all my bills. I did get a job at Walmart, and I hated that job for the entire year I worked there. the entire year. But I did get another job, a full-time job that I moved into, and I worked in a collection agency, which I kind of loved and hated at the same time. Loved the work, hated the boss. So, yeah. Now, for the first 6 months that I moved back, I slept on a futon on the floor. A single-size futon in our spare room, which is now my mother's office, because she works from home. So, that was really hard. All of my stuff was in boxes. I didn't have a sewing table. I didn't have anywhere to make anything. And if you've ever slept on a futon, like a fold-up futon with no legs on the floor and are like not 4 feet tall, you know how difficult it is to get out of that in the morning or to pee. It was hard. I felt like a baby deer every morning, and after about 6 months I was like, no, I can't handle this anymore. I don't care if it means I have less space. I'm putting together my bed, which happened to be a queen size bed, and it was massive and wood. And when I put that in my room, I had 1 foot of walking space all the way around my room. That was it. That was all there was. And it was comical, like how little space I had, so I literally could just sit on my bed. That was it. That's all I could do. But that was the only reason why I didn't have the space I'm in now, is because my brother was in it and they were doing things to it. So eventually I did get to move downstairs. We built him a bedroom next to mine, and so it was better. You know, there was more space. I could live here where there is sunlight, and I have enough space that this is, you guys know, this is my studio. You see it. And then my bedroom is on the other side. There's not a wall, but it's, you know, a good sized bedroom and a good sized studio. I basically live in a studio apartment without a kitchen attached. And I wouldn't have that if I lived on my own. I'd probably have like 3 roommates, and all my stuff would be crammed into a tiny bedroom again, and I wouldn't be able to have the business I have. So, you know, yes. So I just remember that first like 6 months just being sad and frustrated all the time, just having no control over my life, having to work in a job that I hated, where people yelled at me constantly, threw food at me. It was hard. It also was hard because I thought I was going back to Toronto eventually. I didn't try and make connections here. I didn't try and meet people. The only person I really met was my friend Claire, because I wanted to do a photo shoot for the clothes I'd made for this fashion show, and I still love them so much. And I just, you know, that was it. Like, I met her, I did the photo shoot, and I didn't really like keep up. I made my sister come with me because her sister was going to model for me, which was great. You know, it was just like a lot, and I didn't really make friends, and it took me like 3 years to really make friends, and really kind of get my feet under me and start living life and making things again. Eventually I started making jewelry, and I was able to like make connections with people in town. I got my stuff in a store. I did events and I did markets and things like that. And you know who was the person who was at every single one, helping me set up, helping me take down, helping me like merchandise things? My mom. My mom. And maybe that was because she needed her car that day and I needed a ride to wherever I was going. Doesn't matter. She was still there supporting me in her own quiet, peaceful way, which is just my mom. And I feel like I'm gonna cry because like I don't talk about these things ever, and we don't talk about it as a family, which is, you know, we should. So anyway, I'm gonna try and like keep my shit together for a little bit longer. So I started building a network of people that I would see at these events and markets and things like that, and I made vastly different things. You guys have seen it in my things I used to make video. She drove me to Ottawa once for a market. I didn't sell a damn thing. She didn't care. She was like, yeah, but you met people, you made connections, this is great, you know. This is like, she would always cheer me on, even in just like, so what if you didn't make money? It's not a big deal, you know? So she's always been there. I live also with my adult sister and my adult brother. My brother moved out for a couple of years and has now moved back. We kind of all just like it here, you know, it's great. My brother is wanting to get a tiny house. My sister's saving for a house. So like, all these things are happening, and me, I'm just living my life. I don't want to live here forever, but I don't see myself moving to an apartment anytime soon. So yeah, as long as she'll have me, I'm gonna stay here. Now, not to say like there's always bad things, you know, in any living situation. Nothing is perfect. So I'm gonna go through a quick list of things that are not great and we've had to address or still are addressing, and then I'm saving all the good stuff for the end, so stick around, okay? So we, at the beginning, or maybe like the first few years, my mom and I had to have some really hard and sometimes shouty on my part conversations about diets, and me being forced to go on them at other times as a child when I was 12, 13 years old. She had also kept insisting that like I should really think about getting gastric bypass surgery because she had it and it changed her life, and it never really felt right for me. And it took going through the process and being about to get a surgery date to realize like I don't want to do that. So that was a thing we had to go through. She also had to learn that you can have a non-traditional job. My mom has always like worked probably 2 jobs at a time. She worked for the government our whole lives, and that, you know, came with a pension and benefits and that steady job. But to make extra money, she worked and taught cake decorating, she did bookkeeping, like all these other things, you know? And it really took her seeing like that I can make money online. Like the first time I got an ad revenue payout on my YouTube channel, she was like, what? I'm so confused. You know, once she saw that I could make money at doing this and doing websites for people, and when I worked for Shopify and I worked from home and it was totally like not normal to not have to leave the house, that really opened her eyes up. And it took a long time to get to that point where she just basically like, she would make a face, you know moms and they're like their faces. My mom would make one when I would talk about, you know, non-traditional type jobs. She would still support me, but like, you know. In my times of unemployment and since I've moved back, I have been on unemployment insurance twice. Which means that I was let go from my job and wasn't able to find a job right away and had to get unemployment insurance, which is like I pay into as a regular job. I would pay into it. So just, you know, I'd already paid it, and it gave me actually a chance to work on my business and get it going more. Eventually I did find full-time work, and you know, it was great. Maybe I've been on it 3 times. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's the matter of like, it is what it is. So in those times of being unemployed, she would allow me to not pay rent, or would change the amount of rent I paid. And you wouldn't have that in a traditional living experience, I guess. You can't really say to your, well, maybe right now you could, but you know, you can't say like, I can't afford rent, so can I pay you less? Can I not pay you? Like, that's not how it works, right? So I don't particularly like not being able to pay rent, and she does use that to pay bills and put it towards, you know, the things that cost her money for me being here. But you know, it's a flexibility, you know, it changes based on my income. If you need to not pay it, then that's okay. But now I'm doing okay where I can pay her a little bit of rent, you know, which is great. And then it'll build up and build up. So anyway, here's a big one. And I'm sure all of us experience this at some point. My mom likes things done when she tells you to do them. Not 20 minutes from now, not, okay, I'll do it when I get to it. She wants it done now. So if she tells you to empty the dishwasher, she meant for you to empty it 5 minutes ago, but she's okay if you do it right now. And I like to do things on my own time. You know, I am usually in the middle of something when she tells me to do something, and I don't want to stop doing it to go and do the thing she asked. We've kind of come to terms of like, she tells me to do it and she gives a timeline now, like, before the end of the day, could you please do this? Sometimes it still doesn't get done, but that's just mostly because I forget. And now you're probably thinking, you live with your mom, you probably have no privacy at all. Okay, well, that's a little bit true. I live in the basement, so it's kind of removed from the rest of the house where the life is, but I share a wall with my sister, who's probably listening to me record this video right now. And I shared a wall with my brother before that. You know, he moved out, she moved down here, and now he lives upstairs, directly above my head. And my mom's office is directly above my bed. You know, 2 different rooms above me. So while there's not a lot of privacy, I do have some. I have a lock on my door, and that's fine. I don't need any more than that. This works. So that's the last on my bad things list, and they're not even really that bad. They are completely livable with things. But I have a whole list of good things. So in my house, there's no leftovers. If there is, somebody will eat them. If I bring home food and I don't want to save the leftovers because they're not going to be good the next day, there is always someone to eat those leftovers. And let's face it, pasta is really not good that reheated. Well, at least to me. I do not like reheated pasta, but I do want to buy pasta for takeout, and there's always someone to eat it. My mom buys the groceries, and either me or my sister puts them away. Depends on who's upstairs when she comes home with them. That's pretty great. I find grocery shopping relaxing, but only when I'm shopping for myself. When I am shopping for everybody else in our house, I get quite panicked about, like, did I buy enough? Is this enough? Did I get the right brand? Like, did I do this right? And I tried to take over grocery shopping for her a few times when she was working, like, traveling a lot for work, and oh god, was it a fail. So we keep her doing that, because honestly, we would have no food if it was left up to me. I'd be like, oh yeah, like 1 pizza is enough, right? It's not enough. So I get to help decorate the house. Our upstairs is basically, she just goes, I want to do this. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is how we could do it. And she brings me colors. I don't have to pay for the renovations, but I get to have say in what happens. where paintings go, she'll buy the painting, or she'll buy a couple and then be like, which one do you prefer, which one goes with our furniture. She's not like overly sure on colors and stuff, and so she trusts my opinion on those things, which is pretty great. And I would not have that living with roommates, I'm pretty sure. Also, I would have had to spend so much more on decorating, and I've not had to. My mom has finally come around to the idea that you don't need a government job or a corporate job to make money. You can make money on the internet and it's not a scam. She's not come around to the idea of online dating yet. She still makes that face, but I'm not even trying to online date, so it doesn't matter. I get to have a dog. I wouldn't have my dog in an apartment, more than likely, because she's too scared of everything. I'd have to carry her in the elevator. She would probably not be able to ride in an elevator with other people. She won't go to the bathroom on a leash, so that's gonna cause some problems. So I get to have a dog, and my dog gets to have a backyard to run around in. She has built-in friends with my brother's dog, her dog, so we get that socialization for her, but then also there's someone to watch my dog or to give her treats and to pet her. And you know, everybody in my house loves my dog and treats her like their own, until I say, well, they can pay the vet bills then, and they're like, never mind, you're just my favorite, but like also you're hers. So I am pretty sure that I'm way closer with my family now than if I'd continued to live in Toronto and continued to live separately. You know, I talk to my brother and my sister every day. I definitely didn't do that when I lived in Toronto. They were all still in school, like high school and such, so like it's very different because we're all adults. But I talk to them every day. I talk to my mom every day. And another thing that's gotten a lot better since I moved back is I definitely had a severe amount of anxiety when I lived on my own, especially when I first moved out. I would call my mom every single day having some sort of attack and bawling my eyes out, and it was completely undiagnosed because I didn't even know that was a thing, an option. And if I had, my dad would have lost his goddamn shit if I had been diagnosed with some sort of mental health issue, because that is for the weak, according to him. And yeah, okay. I don't feel tied to one place, but I always have somewhere to call home. I can buy an RV tomorrow, put all my shit in it, and go travel across the country. I'm not doing that because you know why. These unprecedented times, I'm not traveling anywhere, but I could, and I would still have somewhere to come back to. I would still have a place to crash if I needed it. I would never feel like I'm not welcome here. It took a long time to feel like that. When I first moved back, I was scared to like open the fridge even and like have a glass of juice for fear that like I wasn't allowed to do those things, or like eat something out of the cupboard or move something or clean anything even. But now it's sort of like everything is everybody's, and you know, unless you put your name on it, it's theirs. So yeah, we are really good at finding humor in shitty situations. I think we've fared well through these unprecedented times just simply because we find the funny in everything. Yeah. There's also someone around to think that my farts are funny or my burps are funny. It's not just me sitting alone farting or whatever and me thinking it's funny. My dog doesn't laugh at it, but My brother certainly will. My mom will. That's just our humor. So, you know, if I need to go away for a night, there is someone to look after my dog. I don't have to put her in a boarding place or whatever. There is someone here to look after her. And my dog gets really anxious when I do go away for a night. The 2 times since I've had her in 4 years that I have slept outside of the house with her, she tried to escape, got into the neighbor's yard, and got stuck. So, yeah, that's a thing that she does. And one of them I was away for a whole week, and she was not okay, but having my family to take care of her meant that like I was okay and I could leave her. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go, and it was a work event and I couldn't not go. So it wasn't it was not a choice. Also, I get a free Costco membership. Not from Costco, but my mom has one and she puts me on hers because then she can send me to pick stuff up. We've never actually done this, but she still keeps putting me on her membership, so, you know. My sister has someone to drive her to work all the time. While my brother was off work when his job closed down for a bit, he was doing it, which was pretty great because it meant I got a lot more work done. However, I'm back on that, and it means I drive her to medical appointments, I drive her to work, and I pick her up sometimes, but it means like something extra that my mom doesn't have to worry about, which she would figure out a way to make all of the things work, and now she doesn't have to. We just say, oh well, I'll pick her up, it's not a big deal, I'll drive her, it's not a big deal. We got family dinners. We don't really eat together. We're all pretty self-sufficient. Someone's always ordering takeout, or, you know, cooking an individual meal. But there is often family burger nights, family pizza night, you know, where if one person's cooking pizza, then we might as well all have pizza. Or taco night sometimes, where my mom will just make up tacos and it's sort of like a buffet style. You want tacos? Here's tacos, you know, eat them, and then we have leftovers for days. So it's pretty great that way, where a lot of times you don't really have to think about cooking, or you could just get somebody to hang out with while you eat. It's pretty great. I also get to partake in the leftover bits. If somebody doesn't want something, I get some. My mom often will go and get Chinese food, and she can't eat it all, and then she's like, hey, you guys want my leftovers? And we're like, yes we do, thank you very much. This one I thought was pretty funny. My roommates don't care if I'm messy, because we're all messy. Yes, you see that pile of stuff behind me? That's just a pile of fabric. They don't care. They don't care if I'm super messy. They don't care. And I don't really care if they are too. To an extent, there's always going to be things that, like, you know, you didn't put stuff back in the fridge, right? Which is always my pet peeve of, like, someone put the ketchup in upside down. Or, you know, they put the mustard in with the big bottles when it goes in the small bottle section. I'm weird. That's fine. But, like, overall, we're just messy people, and we're okay with that. And I would not experience that with other people that I live with. Now, I do recognize that I'm really, really lucky, because I grew up with both my mom and my dad. Doesn't matter that my dad was an asshole. He still is. He's alive. I just don't talk to him. But it meant that we had 2 incomes, so we grew up middle class, you know. We can afford a whole house. We don't live in an apartment. We also don't live in a heavily populated city where rent or house would be really, really, really expensive and unaffordable for us. my mom has had a steady job that paid well for my whole life. We had benefits, and you know, obviously I'm not on those anymore because I'm too old and I'm not in school, but still, you know, like, all of those have played into why she can afford to have me live here for a very discounted rent rate. And you know, it's led to a lot of good things in my life. Being able to not worry so much about money and just be able to pay my bills. Like pay the essential ones, like paying for my car payment, car insurance, putting gas in my car so I can go back and forth to places. Paying my cell phone bill. You know, those things are like the things I can't get out of paying, and being able to live here has meant that's taken a lot of the burden off of my shoulders. And I'm very lucky, and I realize not everybody has that situation. Not everybody has parents that they could go back and live with. Their parents won't let them. Their parents don't like want them there. They can't live with their parents because they're deceased, or their parents are monsters, and like that's not a safe environment. I know I'm very lucky. I also don't suffer through my mom going, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? When are you doing this? She just lets you live and let live. You know, she's very go with the flow. No big deal. Water off her back. You know, it's my life. It lets me live it. Granted, if I came home at like 3 a.m. every night, completely pissed drunk, she may not be so appreciative of that, but she no longer waits for me to come home at night, which is great, because when I first moved back, if I went out with friends and was out past like midnight, she would be waiting awake because she was worried I wasn't going to come home or it was unsafe. But she's become much more chill now. Also older, and sleep is important, so you know. But you know, those are the things that I am very, very lucky that my situation is good. Not everybody has that situation to come home to, and I do, and I appreciate it every single day. Sometimes not as much as I should appreciate it, but I do. So anyway, that's what it's like for me to live at home in my 30s. It's weird, and I don't tell most people. I don't also pretend that I live with roommates. So anyway, I don't really have anything else to add. If you like this video, like it. If you want to share it with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe. If you made it all the way to the very end, you're a rock star. If you have any questions or comments about living alternative ways, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!